Let's be honest. You don't need a $30,000 Italian supercomputer to warp your internal organs. While European brands chase fragile electronics and astronomical repair bills, a rogue faction of Japanese engineers has been quietly forging brutal, heavyweight legends designed for one thing: straight-line domination. Today we expose the top 10 fastest Japanese muscle bikes ever created. We're talking about massive V4s, supercharged aerospace weaponry, and the kind of torque that literally tears the asphalt from the road. Do not blink. The monster at number 1 doesn't just accelerate, it rewrites the laws of physics. Let us begin. Number 10. The Honda V65 Magna. You want a classic cruiser, but you utterly despise being passed on the highway by modern sport bikes. In the early 1980s, Honda built a liquid-cooled V4 that completely destroyed the American muscle car. To understand the Japanese muscle bike, we must travel back to the genesis point of the horsepower wars. Produced from 1983 to 1986, the Honda V65 Magna was a terrifying revelation. It was the motorcycle that legitimately invented the power cruiser category, holding the Guinness World Record as the fastest production motorcycle on Earth during its brief, violent reign. Honda completely ignored the traditional, vibrating, slow air-cooled V-twin architecture used by Harley-Davidson. Instead, they took a high-revving racing engine and shoehorned it into a heavy, double-cradle tubular steel frame. They equipped it with track, torque reactive anti-dive control, front suspension to prevent the massive front end from violently nosediving under heavy braking. The final drive utilized a heavy-duty, maintenance-free steel shaft rather than a fragile chain, ensuring all the torque was instantly transferred to the rear tire without snapping links. The tech specs defined vintage supremacy. It featured a 1098cc, liquid-cooled 90-degree V4 engine with dual overhead camshafts. It produced an astonishing 116 horsepower and 63 pound-feet of torque. It weighed a massive 600 pounds fully fueled. The max speed was a terrifying, record-breaking 137 miles per hour, executing a quarter-mile drag strip run in exactly 10.8 seconds. New prices in 1983 commanded roughly $3,200. Today, used prices for pristine, unmolested survivors sit firmly at $3,000. You are purchasing a museum-grade muscle bike for the price of a modern scooter. The Magna birthed the power cruiser segment, but what happens when Honda decides to build a massive, brutal street fighter exclusively for the Japanese domestic market? The incredibly rare machine at number 9 is a ghost. Number 9. The Honda X4. You demand overwhelming exclusivity. You want a heavy, imposing inline-4 muscle bike that nobody else in your entire state owns. Honda built a machine so aggressively overpowered that they refused to export it to the United States. Produced from 1997 to 2003, the Honda X4 was engineered for one singular, ruthless purpose: to assassinate the Yamaha V-Max in the domestic Japanese market. It was a low-slung, incredibly heavy, drag strip-inspired street fighter that commanded immediate respect the second it rolled up to a stoplight. Honda designed the X4 to look like a solid block of milled heavy metal. It utilized a massive, ultra-rigid double-cradle steel tube frame, but the defining engineering feature was the rear wheel. Honda abandoned traditional hollow spokes and bolted on a completely solid, covered aluminum rear disc wheel wrapped in an incredibly wide 190mm rear tire. This solid rear wheel acted as a massive gyroscopic stabilizer at high speeds. The exhaust featured twin, massive megaphone-style mufflers that produced a deep, booming inline-4 symphony. The tech specs highlight relentless low-end grunt. It featured a 1,284cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine. It produced 100 horsepower, but the critical metric was the earth-shattering 89 pound-feet of torque available at incredibly low RPM. It weighed a crushing 660 pounds fueled. The max speed was electronically limited due to Japanese domestic laws, but unrestricted models effortlessly crossed 130 miles per hour, pulling like a freight train from 0 to 100. New prices in the late 90s were the equivalent of roughly $9,000. Because they were never exported to America, used prices for imported gray market models demand a premium, often sitting around $5,000 depending on condition and import taxes. The X4 was a heavy Japanese secret, but when Suzuki wanted to build the largest displacement inline-4 muscle bike in the world, they engineered a sofa that could outrun a Ferrari. Number 8 is pure torque. Number 8, the Suzuki GSX1400. You absolutely despise high-revving sport bikes. You want to leave the motorcycle in 6th gear, roll on the throttle at 30 miles per hour, and let the sheer, gravitational, massive engine torque carry you to the horizon. Suzuki built the ultimate velvet sledgehammer. Produced from 2001 to 2008, the Suzuki GSX1400 was a machine that defied logic. It was not designed to carve tight mountain canyons. It was engineered to completely dominate the open highway and the long, sweeping autobahn. It held the title for the largest displacement, traditional inline-4 muscle bike of its era. Suzuki over-engineered every single structural component. It utilized a massive, high-tensile steel double cradle frame. They completely abandoned modern monoshock rear suspension and equipped it with dual, fully adjustable piggyback rear shock absorbers to manage the immense weight. The seat is widely considered one of the thickest, most plush, and most comfortable saddles ever bolted to a motorcycle. It features massive, naked air cooling fins on the cylinder block, but it relies heavily on the SACS, Suzuki Advanced Cooling System, utilizing an enormous high-capacity oil cooler to keep the internal temperatures from literally melting the pistons. The tech specs define brute, unfiltered displacement. It featured a 1,402cc air and oil-cooled inline-4 engine equipped with advanced electronic fuel injection. It produced 106 horsepower and a gargantuan 93 pound-feet of torque, hitting at just 5,000 RPM. It weighed 508 pounds dry. The max speed forcefully pushed the heavy, unaerodynamic chassis to an incredible 145 miles per hour, providing terrifying, wind-blasting speed without a single piece of plastic fairing to protect the rider. New prices demanded roughly $9,000 in the European and Asian markets. Today, used prices command heavily sought-after valuations, around $5,500 for clean, low-mileage examples. The Suzuki relied on raw displacement. But what happens when Kawasaki takes a legendary superbike engine, wraps it in lime green, and pays homage to an American racing legend? Number 7 is the ultimate hooligan muscle. Are you starting to realize how these Japanese manufacturers quietly dominated the globe? Tell me in the comments which of these massive muscle bikes you want in your garage. And if you demand the ruthless truth about motorcycle engineering, smash that subscribe button right now. Let us enter the high-speed realm. Number 7, the Kawasaki ZRX1200R. You desperately miss the 1980s superbike era. You want the square headlight, the aggressive lime green paint, and the exposed tubular swing arm, but you demand modern liquid cooling and reliable brakes. Kawasaki answered your prayers perfectly. Produced from 2001 to 2008, the Kawasaki ZRX1200R was an aggressive, unapologetic love letter to Eddie Lawson and his legendary AMA Superbike championship-winning Kawasaki KZ1000R. But unlike the vintage machines of the past, the ZRX was a highly refined, brutally fast modern muscle bike designed to absolutely destroy rear tires. The frame is a masterpiece of retro modern engineering. Kawasaki utilized a heavy-duty tubular steel frame, but the centerpiece of the chassis is the massively braced, extruded aluminum tubular swing arm derived directly from their superbike racing program. It was built to eliminate the terrifying rear-wheel flex that plagued muscle bikes in the past. It features fully adjustable KYB suspension on both the front forks and the dual rear shocks, allowing aggressive riders to literally dial in the exact compression and rebound damping required for high-speed cornering. The tech specs highlight aggressive, high-revving thrust. It featured a 1,164cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine utilizing the legendary Kawasaki K-Trek throttle position sensor system to optimize ignition timing. It produced 122 horsepower and 83 pound-feet of torque. It weighed 490 pounds dry. The max speed utilized the small square front bikini fairing to cut through the wind, pushing the motorcycle to a blistering 150 miles per hour. New prices demanded an incredibly affordable $7,900. Today, used prices for the iconic Eddie Lawson replica green models have exploded in value, frequently commanding $7,000 from nostalgic collectors. Kawasaki built a retro street fighter, but Yamaha decided to simply rip the plastic fairings completely off their World Superbike Championship-winning R1 and sell it to the public. Number 6 is a terrifying track weapon disguised as a commuter. Number 6. The Yamaha FZ1, second generation. You want the exact engine block that wins global track championships, but you refuse to fold your spine in half over clip-on handlebars. You demand superbike speed with the upright comfort of a dirt bike. Yamaha just handed you a loaded gun. Produced from 2006 to 2015, the second generation of the Yamaha FZ1 completely rewrote the definition of a muscle bike. While older muscle bikes relied on heavy steel frames and lazy, low-revving engines, Yamaha injected pure, unfiltered superbike DNA directly into the naked street fighter category. Yamaha completely abandoned the heavy tubular steel frames of the past. They engineered a massive, ultra-rigid cast aluminum delta box frame, identically mirroring the chassis design of their elite racing machines. They bolted the engine directly into the frame as a stressed member, significantly reducing physical weight while massively increasing torsional rigidity. The suspension featured massive 43mm inverted front forks. It was built not just to accelerate in a straight line, but to aggressively dive into hairpin corners at triple-digit speeds. The tech specs defined hyper-aggressive performance. It utilized the legendary 998cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine pulled directly from the 2004 Yamaha YZ-FR1. This specific engine utilized a unique, highly complex 5-valve per-cylinder architecture, 3 intake valves, 2 exhaust valves, to maximize high RPM breathing. It produced a massive 150 horsepower and 78 pound-feet of torque. It weighed an incredibly light 485 pounds wet. The max speed was absolutely terrifying. If the rider tucked tightly behind the small front fairing, the FZ1 would aggressively scream to an aerodynamic limit of 155 miles per hour. New prices demanded $10,500. Today, used prices sit at a bargain of $4,500. It is the greatest horsepower per dollar ratio on the used market. Yamaha brought superbike technology to the street, but Kawasaki decided to design a muscle bike that literally looks like a mechanical predator ready to strike. The machine at number 5 defines modern Japanese aggression. Number 5, the Kawasaki Z1000 Tsugumi generation. You completely reject vintage styling. You want a muscle bike that looks like an alien spacecraft forged from raw anger. You want a machine that physically intimidates the traffic around you. Kawasaki engineered the definition of modern menace. Produced from 2014 to the present in global markets, the modern iteration of the Kawasaki Z1000 completely abandoned all pretenses of being a polite commuter. Kawasaki designed this machine utilizing their Tsugumi philosophy, a Japanese design concept that dictates the motorcycle must resemble a hunting predator crouched incredibly low, ready to aggressively pounce on its prey. Kawasaki engineered a massive, incredibly stiff aluminum twin-tube frame that routes the structural beams directly over the top of the engine block rather than around the sides. This made the motorcycle incredibly narrow between the rider's knees. They bolted on highly advanced Showa separate function, big piston SFF BP inverted front forks. This advanced suspension separates the spring preload mechanism into the left fork leg and the damping mechanism into the right fork leg, resulting in flawless, razor-sharp front-end feedback during aggressive braking. The exhaust features 4 massive, distinct tailpipes that emit a howling mechanical intake roar specifically tuned by acoustic engineers to sound terrifying at wide-open throttle. The tech specs deliver pure, uncompromising mid-range punch. It features a 1043cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine. Rather than chasing peak horsepower at the red line, Kawasaki tuned this specific engine to deliver brutal acceleration right in the middle of the rev range, exactly where street riders need it. It produces 142 horsepower and 82 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 485 pounds fueled. The max speed pushes the unaerodynamic, completely naked chassis to an incredible 150 miles per hour, requiring massive physical neck strength from the rider just to hold on against the wind blast. New prices command $12,000. Used prices sit firmly around $6,500. It is the ultimate modern street brawler. Kawasaki designed a predator. But what happens when Yamaha decides to take their MotoGP World Championship engine technology, completely strip off the fairings, and create an hyper-naked monster? Number 4 is a technological terror. We are entering the realm of the hyper-muscle bikes. The speeds are about to become physically terrifying. If you appreciate the brutal honesty of these deep dives, drop a like on the video. Let us cross the 160 horsepower threshold. Number 4, the Yamaha MT10. You are absolutely exhausted by standard screaming inline-4 engines. You demand the deep, throaty, traction-finding torque of an exotic V4, but you demand the unmatched reliability of a Japanese inline engine. Yamaha just handed you the holy grail of internal combustion. Produced from 2016 to the present, the Yamaha MT10 is essentially a Yamaha R1 superbike wearing street clothes. It completely redefined the modern muscle bike category by introducing highly complex MotoGP-derived internal engine technology to the naked street fighter segment. The chassis is a pure, unadulterated racing weapon. It utilizes the incredibly short, highly rigid cast aluminum Delta box frame pulled directly from the R1 track bike. It features fully adjustable KYB suspension and massive, radial-mounted 4-piston brake calipers. But the defining feature of this motorcycle is the CP4 cross-plane crankshaft. Instead of the pistons firing in a traditional, flat up-and-down sequence, the cross-plane crank offsets the connecting rod journals at exactly 90 degrees. This highly complex firing order completely eliminates inertial engine torque. It provides the rider with a direct, telepathic connection between the throttle grip and the rear tire, completely eliminating the sudden, violent spikes in horsepower that cause traditional superbikes to lose traction and crash. The tech specs define hyper-naked supremacy. It features a 998cc liquid-cooled cross-plane inline-4 engine. It produces an earth-shattering 160 horsepower and 82 pound-feet of torque. It weighs just 467 pounds, fully fueled. The max speed is a blistering 155 miles per hour. The cross-plane engine produces an exhaust note that sounds absolutely identical to an exotic, high-dollar American V8 muscle car, echoing violently off the surrounding buildings. New prices demand $14,500. Used prices hover around $10,000. It is the smartest, most technologically advanced purchase a speed freak can make. The MT10 is a brilliant hyper-naked. But what if you do not want an agile, lightweight track bike? What if you want the largest, most terrifyingly powerful engine Suzuki ever manufactured, bolted into an alien chassis? Prepare for the king at number 3. Number 3, the Suzuki B-King. You look at the legendary Suzuki Hayabusa, the fastest production motorcycle of the 2000s, and you think to yourself, I want that exact same engine, but I want it without any aerodynamic fairings to protect me from the wind. Suzuki executives actually approved your insane request. Produced from 2007 to 2012, the Suzuki B-King is an absolute undeniable monument to Japanese engineering excess. It was a concept motorcycle that somehow bypassed the corporate lawyers and actually made it to the production assembly line. It is, quite literally, a naked Hayabusa. To contain the apocalyptic power of the Hayabusa engine, Suzuki had to engineer a massive, bespoke twin-spar aluminum alloy frame. The motorcycle looks like it was designed by a comic book artist. It features incredibly massive, bulging air intake scoops extending outward from the fuel tank, housing the integrated turn signals. The rear end is dominated by two gargantuan, highly controversial under-seat exhaust mufflers that look like twin-jet engines. The rear tire is a massive 200mm piece of rubber desperately trying to maintain traction. Suzuki equipped it with a steering damper directly from the factory because the sheer acceleration threatens to induce violent steering wobbles at any moment. The tech specs defy the laws of physics for a naked motorcycle. It featured a 1,340cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine. It produced a catastrophic 181 horsepower and 108 pound-feet of torque. It weighed a massive 580 pounds fully fueled. The max speed was strictly electronically limited by a gentleman's agreement among Japanese manufacturers to 158 miles per hour. However, if a rider bypassed the electronic speed limiter, the B-King possessed the raw gearing and horsepower to approach 170 miles per hour, threatening to physically tear the rider off the handlebars. New prices in 2007 commanded $13,500. Today, used prices hold incredibly strong at $8,500 due to their intense rarity and cult following. The B-King relied on massive, naturally aspirated displacement. But Kawasaki realized that to truly dominate the modern era, they needed to utilize forced induction. The machine at number 2 forces compressed air into the engine to create impossible horsepower. Number 2, the Kawasaki ZH2. .200 horsepower is usually reserved for fully fared, aerodynamic superbikes. You want that exact same hyperpower in a comfortable, upright street fighter. Kawasaki didn't just build a big engine, they bolted a supercharger to it and created a forced induction nightmare. Produced from 2020 to the present, the Kawasaki ZH2 is the undisputed king of modern Japanese hyper-nakeds. It represents a terrifying leap forward in engineering, proving that Kawasaki is willing to weaponize forced induction technology for the public streets. Bolting a supercharger to an engine generates immense, catastrophic amounts of heat and internal stress. To manage this, Kawasaki engineered a highly specialized, high-tensile steel trellis frame. Instead of using a traditional aluminum twin-spar frame that would trap the boiling engine heat, the open trellis steel structure allows massive amounts of cooling airflow to wash directly over the supercharged engine block. The supercharger itself is a marvel of aerospace engineering. It is a planetary gear-driven, centrifugal supercharger designed entirely in-house by Kawasaki Heavy Industries Aerospace Division. The impeller blades spin at over 130,000 revolutions per minute, physically forcing highly compressed oxygen directly into the combustion chamber. The tech specs read like a classified military document. It utilizes a 998cc liquid-cooled inline-4 engine equipped with a supercharger. It produces an absolutely devastating 200 horsepower and 101 pound-feet of torque. It weighs 529 pounds fully fueled. The max speed is a completely unhinged 175 miles per hour. When the supercharger spools up, it emits a terrifying, high-pitched mechanical chirp that echoes across the highway, warning every vehicle around you that you are about to warp space and time. New prices demand $18,500. Used prices command $14,000. It is the pinnacle of forced induction aggression. The supercharged Kawasaki is a modern marvel, but it is not the fastest, most brutal muscle bike ever made in Japan. The machine sitting at number 1 possesses an engine block so incredibly massive and a design so iconic that it literally defines the word muscle. Prepare for the king. Number 1, the Yamaha V-Max, second generation. We have reached the summit. The number 1 undisputed, most terrifying, and most legendary Japanese muscle bike ever forged by human hands is the second-generation Yamaha V-Max. Produced from 2009 to 2020, Yamaha decided to resurrect their legendary 1980s icon. But instead of just updating the old engine, they completely lost their minds. They engineered a motorcycle that prioritizes massive, brutal, straight-line quarter-mile domination over everything else on the planet. It is a masterclass in mechanical intimidation. The engine is so incredibly large and heavy that Yamaha had to engineer a bespoke, massive, cast aluminum diamond frame just to contain the torque. The visual design is dominated by the enormous, hand-finished aluminum air intake scoops flanking the fake fuel tank. The actual fuel tank is hidden completely under the seat to lower the center of gravity and keep the rear tire planted under the devastating acceleration. It utilizes a highly advanced Yamaha chip-controlled intake YCCI system, which physically changes the length of the intake funnels inside the airbox at high RPM to deliver a massive secondary surge of horsepower, simulating the violent V-boost of the original vintage model. It transfers all of this catastrophic power to a massive 200mm rear tire through a heavy-duty enclosed shaft drive. The tech specs are mathematically absurd. It features a 1,679cc liquid-cooled 65-degree V4 engine. It produces exactly 200 horsepower, but the absolutely lethal metric is the 123 pound-feet of torque. It weighs a gargantuan 683 pounds, fully fueled. The max speed from the factory was electronically limited to 135 miles per hour for safety and liability reasons. However, professional drag racers instantly cracked the ECU and removed the speed limiter. A de-restricted V-Max is capable of violently ripping past 170 miles per hour, completely defying the laws of aerodynamics. New prices demanded an incredibly premium $19,990. Today, used prices hold immensely strong at $12,000. It is the absolute, undisputed emperor of the Japanese muscle bike world. The European manufacturers desperately want you to believe that you must spend $30,000 on a fragile Italian or German supercomputer to experience terrifying, adrenaline-fueled speed. But you now possess the truth. You know that Japanese engineers quietly, ruthlessly perfected the art of the heavy muscle bike. From the vintage power-cruising supremacy of the Honda V65 Magna to the supercharged aerospace weaponry of the Kawasaki ZH2, these 10 machines prove that heavy metal, reliability, and brutal displacement will always dominate the stoplight drag race. Click on the next video in order to continue the ride, and don't forget to hit subscribe and to like this video.